Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. What a game. What a game. I've said this once and I'll say it again. There definitely are people who have given me a hard time about not not watching Iowa football games in its entirety from beginning to end. Now, the thing is that I do watch it in one way, shape, or form in its entirety all the way through. But it's just like, Iowa plays such a stressful, and I learned this a few years ago. Iowa plays such a stressful style of football that I just can't do it. I cannot sit through these nail biters that are closer than they need to be. And it's how it happens every time. Now, I did watch this game from beginning to end. This 10-7 thriller of a game. I'm just going to share some of this out, guys. So just give me 1 second to get this shared out. Gosh, of course, it's hard to find Northwestern's Twitter page here. Of course. Oh, well, I'm just going to hashtag them. Screw it. Nail biter of a game. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable how often Iowa does this and how they're still able to be 7-2, which they are now. Of course, Iowa versus Northwestern. Post game show. Which is awesome, guys. I'm not gonna say it's not. I don't want to overshadow that fact because it is a big deal that Iowa is 7-2. And with what happened around the Big Ten today, as Gary Dolphin said on his live broadcast, the Big Ten West really did help the Iowa Hawkeyes in securing or gaining ground in the Big Ten West. The Big Ten West is by far, I think, the worst conference or division in all of football when it comes to offense. I don't even think it's close. On that front, I did want to talk about Brian Ferentz before we fully delve into today's game. I mean, even though Iowa won 10-7, to tell you the truth, guys, there's not, a ton to delve into. Tory Taylor, for example, Tory Taylor did have a tough punt at the end of the game that almost cost Iowa the game. Thank goodness Iowa was able to, gain one first down and get into field goal range. But even then, when Iowa was, gain that first down, to me, they were far too conservative. If this is another football team that's not Iowa, and you don't have as good of a kicker as Iowa does, you have to get at least 2, maybe even 3 first downs. So, now thank goodness Iowa has that kicker in Drew Stevens, albeit he's had a slight down year compared to last year. But thank goodness they have him. All right, this is all shared out. We should be good to go. If you guys want to share it out, you guys can. Let's see. Yeah, that's probably good for now. All right, let's take a look here. I thought LaShawn Williams played a decent game today, rushing for close to 80 yards. It's very interesting. Caleb Johnson, guys, that is the one thing that I had. Well, there's been a few small things that I've gotten wrong. The big picture for Iowa, I have not gotten wrong thus far. Okay. Even before the season, I told you guys to tepid your expectations for the offense and Cade McNamara and the production and things like that, in which I have been vindicated. But I thought Cade McNamara was going to have a much better year statistically. I was pretty high on him. I don't think I was as high as others or most, but I thought he was going to do better. I was wrong on that. And Caleb Johnson, I was so confident that he was going to have 1,000-yard rushing season, but it just hasn't happened. He has had a very, very up and down season. And I think you can credit most of it to injuries. But, when you think of Caleb Johnson this year, it's a very sporadic image. Like it's hard to recall which games he exactly played, which games he didn't play. I think he's had one really, really good rushing game, but he just hasn't been able to get the groove and momentum that he started to get last year. And I think at this point, it is better that Iowa has decided to go with LaShawn Williams, the guy who has been healthy. The biggest skill that you can have in football is availability. And LaShawn Williams this year has had that. So that is interesting. It was good to see Caleb Brown today. He had a very, very important, crucial catch at the end of the game. I think the story for this game is two things. One is how lights out this Iowa defense is. Now, granted, Northwestern is not an elite offense. They're not even a good offense. You guys know my indicators are average, good, elite. But Iowa's defense is just spectacular, as I knew they would be, as most people knew that they would be. There, dating back to the Penn State game, there were a lot of Penn State fans who commented in the comment section saying, well, they're not as good of a defense as they were last year, yada, yada, yada. And I just kept saying, no, they have some youth on the back end. They have some new pieces, but the talent is there. You could argue that that they have more talent on defense this year than they even had last year as well. So when all is said and done. So the defense continues to move forward. Somebody asked me an interesting question. If Iowa played Penn State again, and I can't remember I think they played Penn State on the road. If they played Penn State on the road again right now, would the game be any different? And I think it would slightly be in Iowa's favor due to how amazing the defense is. And, if it's even possible, they have improved from the game that they played against Penn State. But no, I don't think it would be very much different. I just don't. Iowa just has not made the progress offensively. Total yards for the day, 169 for Iowa compared to Northwestern's 170. Passing yards, Iowa and Northwestern failed to throw more than 100 yards. Iowa failed to throw more than 75 yards. Well, actually, let's look at the player stats, see if that's Deacon Hill, 10 of 15, which isn't bad. He only had 5 incompletions. Granted, one of those was a costly interception, which I'll go back to with my 2 storylines for the game. It was defense. And then the other storyline for this game was Iowa's failed opportunities in Northwestern territory 3 times. Iowa failed to come away with points. Rushing yards 104 to 89. Yards per play 3 to 2.8. First downs 15 to 11. Third down efficiency 4 for 12 compared to Northwestern 6 of 17. Total plays 56 to 61. Punts 6 to 8. Penalties 3 for 30. 7 for 71 for Northwestern. 0 fumbles lost for both teams. 1 INT for Iowa. Total time of possession 30-18 for Iowa and 29-42 for Northwestern. So the second storyline, as I said, for this game is Iowa failing in the first half to score on 3 opportunities in Northwestern territory. They had the dink. I'm going to show the touchdown that Iowa did have. They had the dink that, and listen, I'm not even mad at Drew Stevens for missing that. That's a really tough field goal to make at Wrigley Field on the road, tepid environment. It's just second time I've used the word tepid tonight. I don't really fault him. I mean, you'd like to see him drill it, which ultimately he did at the end of the game to win the game, which is great. But the other two, an INT from Deacon Hill, and then the other one where Iowa just, spurned out on that drive. So, I always say, guys, that is what separates a good offense from, an average offense from a good or elite offense, is the ability to make a team pay and ram it down their throats when you get into their territory. And that is just something that Iowa has massively struggled with this season. Really quickly, I wanted to look around. Here's the rest of the stats. LaShawn Williams, 79 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. It was good to see Josiah Patterson. We even saw Cooper DeJean, a.k.a. Cooper DeJean, in there. Caleb Brown with a really nice catch. I really, really hope we see him more as the season goes on because, man, I'll tell you what, guys, if Iowa ended up losing Caleb Brown when they had him, that it would be a travesty. I mean, think about the talent that they would be essentially allowing to just walk out the door due to the issues with their offense. Addison Ostranga, 3 receptions, 15 yards, 1 tub. Hayden Large, 1 for 15. Deontay Vines, 2 for 9. Nico Reganey, 1 for 8, aka Nico Ragaini. Caden Wetchin had a good return at the end of the game, and there is the rest there. Let's look around the Big Ten to see what the Big Ten scores are. So as we're looking up the Big Ten scores, I want to talk a little bit about Brian Ferentz. You guys know that I made a post and said that it was time for Brian to be done. It's going nowhere. It is still going nowhere offensively. And it was just the best for both sides. And, I have had my reservations about Beth Gates, and I'm still not sold on her. I made a reaction video to that. I highly suggest you guys go and check that out, where I expand upon the decision for Iowa to part ways with Brian Ferentz at the end of the season. But suffice it to say, I commend Beth Gates for having the courage to stand on her own 2 feet and make a decision, something Gary Barta did not have the will to do. This was a decision that was never going to be resolved by Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz was never, ever going to have the audacity to get rid of his son. It was never going to happen. And I don't necessarily fault him for that. I mean, I'm sure it's a very tough situation, but that is why people have such big issues with nepotism. Now, newsflash, people, nepotism exists all across the country. I think there has been a desire to improve upon it. and not have it be so pronounced across industries, but it definitely exists, especially when you start looking at some of the more powerful families in the country. But Kirk Ferentz, with the time for Kirk Ferentz to pull the trigger on getting rid of Brian Ferentz went away after like the third or fourth season of keeping Brian Ferentz, because at that point, Kirk Ferentz, that was the decision point. And at that point, Kirk Ferentz had made the decision. He had done the mental gymnastics to get himself to a place where he was going to be all in on one decision or the other. And once it was made to keep Brian Ferentz, he was just going to dig in, as we saw him continuously do, on keeping Brian Ferentz. So it was the right decision. I also think Beth Gates has done a good job with kind of seeing the trajectory of college sports, especially when it comes to football and basketball. The bottom line is, guys, NIL is going to be, it already is. It's going to play an even bigger role moving forward. And while these athletes are still technically considered student athletes and still technically considered amateurs, the bottom line is money is going to play a major factor, and being able to pay players is going to play a major factor into securing a commitment from a player or not. We already saw that occur with, now I know he says that it didn't happen and it didn't play a big impact, and I think that it's true to some degree. I also think that Iowa's ineptitude on offense played a big role too, but Iowa losing out on Caden Proctor, I guarantee, had massive implications financially, as much as his issues with the Iowa offense. So Brian Ferentz is gone, guys. I think Iowa still has a ton to play for. He'll be gone at the end of the season. Of course, that was the big news. But, you know, I really was hoping that with him for sure being gone, that he would decide to open it up a little bit. But the thing is, guys, this has nothing to do with whether Brian is willing to open it up or not, and Kirk allows it. It has nothing to do with that. At the end of the day, Brian is just not a good offense play caller. And I'll give you guys an example. Multiple times today, he called this screen pass where it's a delayed screen pass where, you know, the offensive line kind of does a fake of sorts, and the running back does the same, or it could be a wide receiver at times. And then the running back kind of just sneaks next to one of the offensive linemen. And as the defensive linemen come forth and get out of position, and it opens up a large, I guess, runway, that is kind of the hope of the play. Iowa has failed to do that all year long. They have failed to get any consistency on that play all year long. Maybe once, maybe twice it's worked, but that is an example of Brian just not having what it takes. They continuously go back to that call over and over and over again on third down when it's so obvious that it doesn't work. The players are not ready to make that play. The quarterback's not ready to make the play, and the running back's not ready to make the play. Yet Iowa continuously goes back to it. So this is the best, guys. This is the best. And I know there's Iowa fans who are the, you know, remain loyal at all costs to Kirk Ferentz and Brian, you know, and anything that's negative that is said, you know, you're a disloyal Iowa fan, you're a fair weather Iowa fan. That is pure nonsense. I've said it many, many, many times. When you are a fan and you know, contribute to the program financially and just with the enormity of the program at large, you have every right to criticize and critique issues on the field. Every right. And ultimately, that's the only way that things change. And conversely, I would get on fans if I thought that it was not justified. Because I've given the example of the Tennessee Volunteers and Florida Gators and some of the SEC schools where their fans being overly critical led to them hiring and firing coaches multiple times because they thought the grass was greener when it wasn't. And they didn't have the resources to get the type of coach that they thought. Last thing I want to say before we look at some of the scores here, you guys can already see them. Man, the Big Ten West, Big Ten West really helped out Iowa today, guys. Holy crap! Holy crap! I totally forgot what I was going to say there. It doesn't matter. But so yeah, Brian Ferentz is gone, and that's what I was going to say. The dream hire I think Iowa would make is maybe I would say that the top candidate is probably the Washington coach, the Washington Huskies coach, who has ties to the state of Iowa. I've heard the Stoops name passed around. I've heard the former Nebraska head coach Scott Frost. I'm in a message thread for one of the Iowa Facebook groups, and my response to Scott Frost, all I said was that he is a good recruiter, which he is. I don't think he's right for Iowa, but he has coached other places other than Nebraska. Okay, so there's other evidence to go on than just his time at Nebraska. Would he be my top pick? Heck no. He doesn't fit Iowa's culture. It wouldn't work. Okay. I don't think it would work, but he is a good recruiter. And I think he has had some success being an offensive play caller, certainly more than Brian Ferentz has ever had. But Iowa, I'm telling you guys right now, Iowa is not going to go with a big home run hire. They're going to go with somebody who's a little under the radar that they feel confident will stay at Iowa for multiple years, at least one recruiting cycle. That is what Iowa does. All right, guys, across the country, Penn State beat Maryland. Michigan plays Purdue at 4:30. Ohio State beat Rutgers 35-16. Indiana with the upset victory over the Wisconsin Badgers. Huge game with massive implications if you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan. That was huge. And then, of course, but you guys just look across the country. The Big Ten West offenses are trash, guys. Our offenses are just abysmal. Nebraska loses by 3 points to Michigan State, who, of course, Iowa beat. Very, very big. And, of course, Minnesota lost to Illinois, which I said in my Big Ten Whip Around show definitely was a possibility. So Iowa, with one fell swoop, is now atop of the Big Ten West, regardless of all this Iowa Hawkeye offense noise in which I contribute to. Iowa is atop the Big Ten West standings after their 10-7 victory over Northwestern. I can't even believe it, guys. One fail swoop, and Iowa is atop of the Big Ten West standings. That is crazy. You guys never know in college sports, because at the end of the day, they're just kids. They're still just young men. And anything is possible. All right, guys, I want to see what your guys' comments are. There you guys have it. Iowa, top of the Big Ten West standings. Wow. Awesome. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. All right. Paul Hoffer, Iowa, ugly. Tlat Loney, baseball score in a baseball field. True dat. Michael Moore and Deacon Hill has 3.33 adjusted yards per attempt this season. He needs to be benched. I couldn't agree more. Deacon Hill has had his opportunity. I would be more than okay with Joey Labus being put in there. I don't think it's going to happen, guys. I hate to say it. And I, I've said this multiple times. If there's a team that you can get away with a quarterback change, it's Iowa. It can't get much worse than what it is now. I mean, it can technically, but it probably won't. I know we've said that in the past, but it's probably true. I mean, this is as bad as it gets. Iowa actually has a defense and a special teams to lean on to protect the production of the quarterback or lack thereof. So I don't see what the issue is, but classic Kirk Ferentz and Brian Ferentz. And Joey Labus will transfer out this season. I guarantee it. He is not going to stay at Iowa, and it sucks because I think he is a really good talent and was highly under-recruited, and they're going to lose him. And, you know, it's very interesting because in the past, Kirk Ferentz would always lean towards his scholarship guys that they recruited out of high school. Not this year. It's just hair pulling insane sometimes. You know, Michael Moore and Deacon Hill are. I was worried about this defense after the Penn State game. They've rebounded well. Yep, I agree. No way we'd lose worse this time because of Deacon Hill. Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't. That's true. That's definitely a possibility. I think Iowa's defense would hold up a little bit better, but is it possible that Deacon Hill and the offense did so bad to where it just stressed the defense so much again, and even more so this time? Yeah, of course. Of course. That field is not sustainable for football. Hope they never play there again. Yeah, they will, because of the revenue. But yeah, that field sucked guys. It was terrible. Michael Takahashi, Minnesota just lost in the most hilarious way possible. Yep. The Big Ten West sucks. Oh my goodness. Ari Gold, boom. Double digits. OU lost. Yeah, I saw that too. That's crazy. John Cream, it's actually hilarious hearing Iowa fans complain, knowing that every other Big Ten West school is worse off than them. Well, I can see why you would come in here and think that way. But if you were an Iowa fan, you would absolutely see what we're all saying. And two wrongs don't make a right. Okay. Just because the other Big Ten West teams are trash and even worse, doesn't mean that Iowa does not need a new offense coordinator. And they do. And really all Iowa fans are saying, none of us are delusional enough, or at least I'm not, to think that we need to be this elite or even good offense. Nobody believes that. We just want an average offense, not a far below average offense, because Iowa fans, unlike you, sir, realize that this brief moment in history is only going to last so long, in which Kirk Ferentz, this assembly of talent when it comes to the coaching staff with Phil Parker, LeVar Woods, Seth Wallace, is only going to be there for so long. And so there's a small window for Iowa to reach heights that have never been seen before. So on one hand, you have Kirk Ferentz, who is pretty much towards the end of his career due to his age. And he even got a little sassy this past week with regards to whether he was going to return next year or not. And you also have this really amazing elite defense and special teams coach and teams year in, year out. And it's the perfect combination to get Iowa to places that we haven't seen in a while, that we haven't seen since some of the Hayden Fry days and maybe the early Kirk Ferentz days in 1 or 2 years towards the tail end of Kirk Ferentz's career. So, like I said, I can see how some could see it that way, but believe me, I feel more than justified to say what I've said about the Iowa Hawkeye offense. I'm not saying Iowa is good, how inept the whole conference is. Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, the conference is not the best. I actually think, though, that the conference, top to bottom, is probably slightly better than the East if you look at all of the teams. I mean, just look at the records. But the difference is that the Big Ten East is very, very top heavy, and the good teams that they have are really, really effing good. Whereas everybody in the Big Ten West is pretty much average to maybe slightly above average. So, that's pretty much what you have. But as far as the offenses go, the Big Ten West is the worst division in football. Make no mistake. All right, guys. Well, I want to end this on a bright spot. Iowa is first in the Big Ten West, regardless of the Iowa offense, regardless of Brian Ferentz, regardless of good old Beth Gates, regardless of all of that. Iowa is 7-2. I have in conference, look at this, guys. Iowa is 4-2, yet they have a negative points forward, points against. That's crazy. 81 points forward, 86 points against. I have a very mixed kind of thought process on it, because on one hand, I'm really, really happy that Iowa is 7-2, but on the other, the way that they win is so ugly and uncomfortable and stressful that it's just, to be an Iowa fan is really, really tough at times, guys. But 7-2, I'll take it. I don't expect Iowa to enter back into the top 25 polls. We'll see. Crazier things have happened. What more is there to say, guys? Iowa got the dub. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to catch the Big Ten Whip Around show. It's been a smashing success thus far this year. And I appreciate all of you guys hanging out. I know some of you guys disagreed with me on my thoughts on the invalid catch when it comes to Cooper DeJean. And you guys know I'm totally okay with that. I just ask that, we try and keep it as respectful as possible. But we're going to have disagreements here. And that's what this is all about. That's why I created this channel. And I'm more than happy to have all of you guys here enjoying the content and trying to enjoy Iowa Hawkeye football with me. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow and facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Hawks 7-2. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.